It's not the slap you see coming that shatters you. It's the slow erosion, the little favors, the quiet guilt, the way your kindness gets stretched inch by inch until one day it snaps. But you're too polite to scream, too forgiving to leave, too committed to being the better person to realize you're not being better. You're being bled dry. Narcissists don't hunt the cruel. They don't chase the strong-willed. They watch for those who lead with empathy, those raised to believe that being kind means tolerating anything. And they feed not on your weakness, but on your unwillingness to draw the sword when it matters most. Part 1 exposed the first 6 signs that your kindness, without boundaries, has made you a target. If you haven't watched it yet, go back and absorb the truth. This isn't theory, this is survival. Because no matter how good your heart is, it cannot survive in the hands of someone who only sees it as leverage. In Part 2, we go further. We break down what happens when your own moral code becomes the very tool used to silence you. When guilt becomes a leash, when your need to not hurt them becomes the excuse they use to never stop hurting you. But there's another path, the Stoic path. The one that says, I will be kind, but I will not be consumed. I will be calm, but not compliant. I will forgive, but not forget who I am. If that's the kind of power you're ready to reclaim, share and subscribe to Victory Stoic right now. And in the comments, drop your story or stand your ground with today's command. Empathy, edge, exit ready. Let's finish what we started. Not with hate, with heat, with clarity, with the kind of truth narcissists hope you never learn to say out loud. Number 7, you believe in their light, but they only show it to keep you in the dark. It's not your fault. You're not naive, you're not weak. You just didn't know people like this existed until you met one. You believed in them because they gave you something real. Not perfect, not pure, but powerful. A connection so intense, so magnetic, it bypassed logic and went straight into your bones. They showed you beauty, depth, vulnerability, and then they vanished, or twisted, or turned cold. But not before planting a seed. Remember how good it was? That was real. We just lost it. And that's the bait. Because narcissists aren't monsters, they're storytellers. Charismatic, intelligent, wildly intuitive. They study you. They reflect your hopes. They hand you a version of themselves that's tailored to your deepest emotional language. And then, once you're hooked, they shift. The warmth dims, the kindness gets colder, the attention turns selective. But just when you start pulling away, they shine again. A little smile, a sweet memory. And I miss us. They don't want you back. They want you to come back, and you do. Because you know they can be that person. You've seen it, felt it, loved it. So you rationalize the rest. They're struggling, it's trauma, they're not like this with everyone. Maybe if I'm just patient, that light will stay on. But here's the truth. The light was never permanent. It was the bait, and you were never wrong for falling for it. You just didn't know the difference between real gold and gold-plated manipulation. Because you'd never met someone who used affection as architecture for control. Ellie, 36, a pediatric nurse in Chicago, once described her ex as the most emotionally intelligent person I've ever met, and the most confusing. He knew exactly how to affirm her, build her up, speak to her dreams. In the beginning, he'd sit with her for hours, listening, encouraging, planning a future. But when she started to have needs, emotional support, time, stability, he became erratic. Cold, vague. Then as soon as she backed away, he'd reappear with poetry, nostalgia, promises. We had something rare, he'd say. And Ellie believed him until she realized he only said that when she was about to walk away. That wasn't love. That was retention strategy. Psychologists call this idealization, devaluation, hoovering, a cycle where the narcissist idealizes you to win you, devalues you to control you, and then reels you back with just enough sweetness to reignite hope. It's not random, it's rehearsed. The Stoics warned against this kind of emotional enchantment. Epictetus wrote, when someone shows you the glint of virtue, ask yourself whether they live it consistently. The problem isn't seeing beauty in someone. The problem is mistaking glimpses for identity. So how do you protect yourself without losing your humanity? First, separate the moment from the pattern. Yes, they were amazing for a moment, but what have they been consistently? If the light only flickers when you're walking away, it's not a lighthouse, it's a lure. Second, stop bargaining with potential. You're not in love with who they are. You're in love with who they could be, If only they stayed in that golden phase. But they don't. And they won't. Because the light isn't who they are. It's who they need to become temporarily to keep you attached. Third, notice how you react to that light. Does it bring peace or confusion? Does it energize you or hook you into a cycle of guilt and second chances? Fourth, remember, real love doesn't come and go like a stage spotlight. It stays lit, especially when things aren't easy. If someone only shows their best self when you're 1 foot out the door, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. Here's the metaphor. They hand you a candle in a dark cave. It flickers. It warms you. It gives you just enough light to keep walking. Deeper, deeper, until you've lost the way out. Then they vanish, leaving you holding hope like a flame that keeps burning your hand while you whisper, "But it was beautiful once." It was. But so are trapdoors when seen from the right angle. Don't chase the light they turn on and off like a trick switch. Be the one who stays lit, with or without them. Be the one who says, "I don't care what you show me. I care what you choose to be consistently." And when they offer one more flash of warmth, one more "I've changed," one more memory, smile. Nod and walk toward the sun that doesn't flicker, the one inside you. Number 8. You stay silent to protect them while quietly destroying yourself. You don't want to hurt them. That's why you hold back. You edit your truth, delay difficult conversations, swallow discomfort like pills you were never meant to digest. You tell yourself, they've been through a lot. Now's not the time. Maybe it's just me. You think silence is maturity, restraint, kindness. But here's what no one told you. Silence in the face of harm doesn't protect love. It protects dysfunction. Every time you avoid speaking up because you don't want to hurt them, ask yourself, what's the cost to you? Because kindness, when it becomes chronic self-suppression, is no longer kindness. It's slow-motion abandonment of yourself. You weren't raised to expect cruelty from people who say, "I love you." You didn't grow up learning how to recognize manipulation disguised as emotion or gaslighting wrapped in soft apologies. So you assumed they were just hurt, or misunderstood, or trying. You weren't prepared for someone who could look you in the eyes, hurt you with precision, and then make you feel guilty for bleeding. Aaron, 35, a civil engineer from Salt Lake City, spent nearly 2 years in a relationship with a woman who weaponized emotion like an art. Every time he tried to raise an issue, her coldness, her emotional disappearances, the subtle dismissals, she'd cry, or go silent, or accuse him of being too sensitive. So he adjusted and adjusted, until one day, sitting in the car after another fight he didn't start, he realized he had no idea who he was anymore. "I just didn't want to break her," he said. "But I didn't see I was the one breaking." That's the hidden tax of emotional restraint in a toxic dynamic. You sacrifice your own clarity to maintain their comfort, and it doesn't make them love you more. It just makes you easier to ignore. You think you're doing the right thing, but a narcissist sees your silence as weakness, as space, as leverage. Every time you let it go, they learn they can go further. Every wound you bandage alone is a lesson to them. They won't leave. I can keep pushing. The Stoics understood this balance. Epictetus wrote, "Silence is better than nonsense, but only the wise know when to speak." Silence is a virtue, but only when it's strategic, not when it becomes a prison built out of your own fear of being too much. So what do you do when your silence starts hurting more than any words could? First, ask yourself who you're protecting and why. Are you protecting them from truth, or are you protecting yourself from the reaction that truth might provoke? Second, start small, but speak. Not everything has to be a confrontation, but your voice should exist in the relationship. If you have to calculate the emotional price of honesty every time you open your mouth, you're not in a partnership. You're in emotional debt. Third, remember, kindness includes telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not received well, because a relationship that can't hold truth is not built to hold love either. Fourth, don't confuse self-control with self-erasure. You don't need to scream, but you do need to speak. You don't need to accuse, but you do need to name what's hurting you. And if that truth breaks the bond, then it wasn't a bond worth saving. Here's the metaphor. You're in a burning house, but you keep closing the windows to keep them warm. And with every hour you wait, you lose oxygen. But they never even notice the smoke. You think love is protecting them from fire. But real love is saying, there's smoke. Something's wrong. And I won't keep pretending I'm not choking. So speak, not to wound, but to warn, not to destroy, but to defend your dignity. And if they call you selfish for finally voicing the pain, remember, it's not selfish to want peace, it's survival. Your silence was never safety, it was a slow surrender dressed as grace. Let your voice return, let your breath deepen, let them deal with truth for once. You've carried theirs long enough. Number 9. You give one more chance. Until you forget how many you've given, you were raised right. You were taught that love means loyalty, that forgiveness is a virtue, and that the people closest to you deserve second chances, even third, fourth, fifth, if needed. You were told that real love fights through the hard times, that family sticks together, that if someone's hurting, you hold space for them. You don't cut and run, but no one told you what to do when someone turns that goodness into their get-out-of-jail-free card. No one warned you that a manipulator doesn't need you to be foolish, just endlessly patient. It starts small. They say something cruel and call it honesty. They cross a line and call it a mistake. They disappear when you need them and reappear when they need you. And you forgive. Because deep down, you still believe they're just going through something. That if you love them hard enough, long enough, they'll come around. But the truth is darker. They're not growing, they're calculating. Because the moment they realize you equate love with long suffering, they stop hiding. They start testing. And every time you say, okay, but just this once, they update the script. This person will stay. This person will bend. This person will let me reset the game every time I break the rules. Lisa, 33, a high school teacher in Philadelphia, spent 5 years in a relationship with a man who cheated, ghosted, and emotionally drained her more times than she could count. But he always came back with a story. I was in a dark place. You're the only one who gets me. I don't deserve you, but I want to try. And every time, she gave just one more shot. Until one day, during a routine therapy session, her counselor asked, how many chances does someone get before it stops being forgiveness and starts being self-destruction? Lisa couldn't answer, because she'd stopped counting. The line had disappeared. Stoicism is not soft on this. Seneca once wrote, a punishment that is too gentle is soon laughed at. He wasn't advocating cruelty, he was warning against lenience that rewards harm. When forgiveness is given without consequence, it teaches the other person who you'll allow yourself to become smaller, quieter, more tolerable. So what do you do when your compassion has become your own cage? First, audit your record. Sit down and write out every last chance you've given. Don't round down, don't excuse, just list them. The sheer number might shock you, because this isn't just about them breaking your trust, it's about you breaking your own standards to keep them close. Second, redefine forgiveness. It doesn't mean forgetting, it doesn't mean access. Forgiveness is a personal release. It's not a hall pass for them to re-enter your life without transformation. Third, build a boundary plan, not vague rules. Conditions with consequences. If this happens again, I will step away for X amount of time. If the behavior repeats, this ends, fully, and you follow through. Narcissists don't believe words, they believe behavior. Fourth, recognize the power of consistency. The right people will grow under your consistency. The wrong people will weaponize it. If someone only behaves when you're about to leave, they're not changing, they're bargaining. And fifth, stop confusing loyalty with captivity. Being loyal to someone who disrespects you isn't noble. It's emotional martyrdom. And in the long run, it teaches them that your love comes without a spine. Here's the metaphor. You're standing on a beach, drawing lines in the sand every time they hurt you. But each time they return with tears, charm, or need, you step back and draw a new line, further from the water, further from your strength. Until one day the tide rolls in and there are no lines left, just silence, and your dignity buried under years of just one more chance. You're not wrong for wanting to believe in people, but there's a line between grace and gullibility. And Stoicism teaches that self-respect is the highest form of moral clarity. So draw a final line, not with anger, not with a speech, but with calm, decisive absence. Because the only thing worse than someone breaking your trust is you becoming the one who hands them the hammer every time. Forgive, but remember, empathize. but evaluate. Be kind, but when needed, be done. Number 10, you fear losing the relationship, so they use that fear to own you. You stay, even when it hurts, even when you know it's wrong, not because you're naive, not because you're weak, but because you've already given so much. Time, energy, love, years, memories, and that voice in your head says, after everything I've invested, I can't just walk away now. That voice isn't loyalty, it's the sunk cost fallacy, one of the most dangerous traps in human psychology, and narcissists exploit it with surgical precision. In business, the sunk cost fallacy is when companies keep pouring money into failing projects simply because they've already invested too much. Rationally, they know the project won't succeed, but emotionally, they feel trapped by what's already gone. The fear of waste overrides the clarity of loss, so they lose more, just to avoid feeling like they lost before. You're doing the same, but instead of dollars, it's years. Instead of bad contracts, it's broken promises. And instead of a failed product, it's a relationship that keeps costing you peace, self-worth, and the future you could be building without them. The narcissist doesn't need to chain you. You chain yourself with hope, memory, and guilt. They know exactly how to keep you circling. Every time you pull away, they don't panic. They trigger the investment. They remind you of the trips, the nights, the struggles you overcame. They say things like, "We've been through so much. Don't throw this away. You mean everything to me." And in that moment, you feel the weight of everything you've poured into them, how much of your story they occupy, and you hesitate. But here's the brutal truth. You're not staying for love. You're staying because you're terrified to admit you stayed too long. Eric, 37, an entrepreneur in San Diego, once told his therapist, "If I leave now, it'll mean the last 6 years were a waste." His therapist replied, "If you stay another 6, will that make the first 6 worth it?" That one question broke the spell. Narcissists know you don't want to start over. They know you fear being alone. They know you can't stomach the thought that maybe, just maybe, this was all manipulation wrapped in potential. So they don't have to beg you to stay. They just have to remind you what you already gave. And you'll do the rest, muffling your instincts, erasing your standards, bargaining with your own dignity. The Stoics were ruthless about this kind of self-deception. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." He didn't say do the right thing as long as you haven't spent too much time doing the wrong one. No, he said do it now, even if it costs you comfort, even if it humiliates your ego, even if it means saying, "I was wrong to stay this long." Because the truth is, the more you stay for the sake of what's already been lost, the more you lose the person you're becoming. So how do you break free from a chain made of your own fear? First, acknowledge the sunk cost. Say it out loud. Yes, I gave a lot. Yes, I believed. But the past doesn't owe me a future. You're not wasting what you've lived. You're learning from it. Second, detach from the what-ifs. What if they change? What if I never find someone again? What if I regret it? Flip the question. What if you waste 5 more years on the wrong person and miss the one who would never treat you like this? Third, stop trying to recover the emotional investment. You're not going to get it back by staying longer. You're not going to win the love you deserved by enduring more pain. That love is gone, or it never existed. You don't recover what was lost, you rebuild what's left. Fourth, decide what you're willing to lose next. Because staying out of fear always costs you something. More confidence, more clarity, more time. The question is, are they really worth that next loss? Here's the metaphor. You've built a house on land that keeps sinking. You've repaired the cracks, reinforced the walls, repainted the rooms, but the foundation is broken. And now every fix costs you more, but gives you less. The house isn't your home anymore. It's your trap, and the longer you stay, the more it collapses. Not just around you, but inside you. So walk. Not because it's easy, because you finally see what it's costing you to stay. They'll say you gave up, but you'll know you finally stopped paying a debt that should have never been yours. Let them keep the story. You keep your future. Number 11, you try to save them, but they just drag you down with them. You tell yourself you're helping. You tell yourself they're worth it. You believe with every fiber of your compassionate being that if you just love them hard enough, patiently enough, long enough, they'll heal. They'll change. They'll rise. But they don't, because they never intended to. They don't want to be healed. They want to be held, worshipped, validated, rescued, but never held accountable. You're not their partner. You're their emotional emergency room, always on call, always bleeding your energy to keep their chaos from consuming them. The worst part? You probably don't even realize it's happening. Because narcissists don't come with sirens and warning labels. They come with stories, tragic childhoods, broken exes, deep trauma, and they tell it so well, so convincingly, that you don't see the manipulation hiding behind their pain. You see a person in need, and because you're kind, you step in. But here's the harsh truth. You can't save someone who's emotionally drowning themselves for attention. They don't want therapy. They want your time. They don't want growth. They want your sympathy. They don't want change. They want control through crisis. And every time you throw them another life raft, another pep talk, another second chance, another sacrifice, you're not helping them swim. You're just keeping them from hitting rock bottom. Derek, 42, a paramedic in Kansas City, dated a woman who was always on the edge. Every time she exploded emotionally, threatened to leave, spiraled into despair, Derek dropped everything. Work, friends, sleep. She needed me, he said. I couldn't just let her fall apart. But after 2 years of being her life raft, he realized something chilling. She didn't want stability. She wanted to be rescued again and again to prove she mattered. Every time he helped her recover, she created a new disaster, a new reason to collapse, a new emotional fire that only he could put out. He wasn't her partner. He was her paramedic. And his reward for saving her? Emotional blackmail, public shaming, and being told he abandoned her the one time he didn't answer her 2 a.m. breakdown call. This isn't love. This is emotional hostage-taking. And if you don't recognize the pattern, it will bury you under their mess, while they blame you for not fixing it fast enough. Stoicism was built for this clarity. Seneca wrote, "To rescue the drowning is good, but not to the extent that you drown with them." Kindness must be paired with wisdom. And wisdom says, your soul is not an infinite clinic for the wounded who refuse treatment. So how do you stop being their savior without feeling like a monster? First, define your role. Are you their partner or their emotional lifeline? If they only call when they're spiraling and vanish when you're not needed, you're not loved, you're used. Second, test for effort. The next time they fall apart, ask, what are you doing to help yourself? If their answer is blame, distraction, or another crisis, they don't want growth. They want a babysitter. Third, stop rewarding collapse. When their drama peaks, don't rush in. Let them sit with it. If it's real pain, they'll seek real help. If it's manipulation, they'll lash out, revealing their true intent. Fourth, protect your energy like it's your last breath. Because in their world, it is. They will drain it until you have nothing left, then call you cold for finally closing the door. Here's the metaphor. You're in a lifeboat, and they're hanging off the edge, screaming. You pull them in, again and again, but they keep jumping back in the water, not to escape, but to make sure you'll keep choosing them over and over. One day you realize they don't fear drowning, they fear being ignored. You're not saving them, you're performing their worth back to them. And you're the one sinking for it, so step back, not in cruelty, but in clarity. Not to abandon, but to protect what's left of you. They say they need saving. What they really need is to face themselves, without you as the cushion. You were never their healer. You were just the distraction that kept them from healing. And once you stop playing the savior, you'll see the truth. They never wanted rescue. They just wanted your ruin. Number 12. You believe kindness will change them, but they just see obedience. You were raised on the idea that goodness always wins. That if you're patient enough, kind enough, steady enough, even the hardest hearts will soften. That love can break walls, that empathy can melt resistance. That if you just keep showing up with compassion, the other person will eventually see your worth, change their ways, and rise to meet you. But here's the truth no one warned you about. To the wrong person. Kindness is not inspiration. It's invitation. Not to grow, but to take. Narcissists don't see your patience as power. They see it as weakness. They don't view your forgiveness as grace. They see it as leverage. The more goodness you show, the more they twist it. They know you won't leave. They know you'll rationalize, empathize, defend, and stay. So they don't have to change. They just have to keep hurting you slower. You're not loving them into growth. You're training them to never respect your limits. Travis, 39, an architect in Boston, spent 4 years in a relationship where he gave everything: loyalty, space, time, second chances, endless understanding. He told himself she was just guarded, that her past trauma makes it hard to love. He doubled down on kindness every time she lashed out or pulled away. But with every act of goodness, she became colder, more entitled, more controlling. The turning point came when he confronted her gently about her disrespect. Her response: "You always act like you're better than me with your calm little speeches." And it hit him. She never admired his kindness. She resented it, because in her eyes his decency wasn't strength. It was obedience, predictable, safe, exploitable. This is what Stoicism warns us about. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Be good at all costs." He said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." And being good, truly good, means knowing when to act, when to walk, and when to let someone sit alone with their own choices. A Stoic is not cold. But a Stoic is not naive either. He understands that kindness without clarity is a form of self-abandonment. So how do you stop mistaking goodness for strategy? First, check your intention. Are you being kind because it aligns with your values, or because you're terrified that withholding kindness will make them leave? Second, test the result. Does your kindness invite accountability from them, or enable avoidance? A healthy person responds to compassion with growth. A manipulator responds with more manipulation. Third, define the boundary where kindness ends and self-betrayal begins. If being good means suppressing your needs, your voice, your dignity, you're not being good anymore. You're being invisible. Fourth, remember, kindness is not how much you can take. It's how well you can discern who deserves it. It's not a currency for transformation. It's a mirror of self-respect. And if your kindness always flows outward but never inward, it will dry up. Not because you're unkind, but because you've been bleeding it into a person who only ever sees it as a green light. Here's the metaphor. You're watering a stone, hoping it will bloom. You show up every day. You bring sunlight, tenderness, patience, but the stone never changes. Not because you didn't try hard enough, but because it was never soil to begin with. And now you're empty, wondering why love didn't grow. Kindness is only power when it stands beside discernment. Love is only transformational when both people are willing to evolve. So stop waiting for your goodness to wake someone up, because narcissists don't wake up. They feed off your faith that they might. And the more you believe that love will change them, the more they change you into someone smaller, quieter, more tolerable. You can still be kind, but make it the kind that walks away when disrespected. The kind that doesn't flinch when accused of being cold. The kind that knows love is not supposed to cost your self-worth. Kindness without a spine will always get chewed up. So grow one, and watch how fast they choke on the new version of you. Conclusion: kindness is not a sacrifice. It's a strategy, when you use it wisely. Being kind is not the problem. It never was. The problem is what happens when kindness becomes unconditional obedience, when it's handed out like candy to people who only come back to take more and never to give. You were never weak. You were just taught to be generous with your soul long before you were taught how to protect it. You believed kindness could save people, and that's noble. But a Stoic knows we don't hand our inner peace to chaos and call it compassion. A narcissist doesn't destroy you in one blow. They destroy you through your own values. One second chance at a time, one maybe they didn't mean it, one whispered excuse, one swallowed truth. They make you question whether being good is worth it, whether caring is foolish, whether drawing lines makes you selfish. But here's where you reclaim yourself. You don't stop being kind. You stop being kind to those who weaponize your goodness. You stop offering warmth to the cold. You stop pouring your best into people who treat your energy like a public resource. Because kindness without boundaries becomes a leash. And the people who deserve you the least are often the ones pulling hardest at the end of it. The Stoic doesn't abandon empathy. The Stoic simply refuses to let it be misused. Seneca taught, associate with people who are likely to improve you. That includes yourself. Your job is not to be endlessly available. It's to preserve the parts of you that are worth protecting. Your clarity, your peace, your strength. And when you give, give like a Stoic. Not out of guilt, but out of grounded intention. Not out of fear, but from a position of choice. Let your kindness be strong. Let it walk away when it's not returned. Let it refuse to be recycled in the name of loyalty. So if you've recognized yourself in this video, if you've been the one carrying the emotional weight for people who never learn to lift their own, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This channel is for the good-hearted who are done being doormats. In the comments, write your story or stake your stand with today's Stoic command: kind, but no longer captive. Because the next time someone asks for your energy, your time, your care, you'll know it's not unkind to ask if they've earned it. It's wise, it's powerful, it's stoic. Thanks for watching. Now go guard your gold. Not everyone deserves the shine.